Right now, somewhere near you, someone is grieving. Maybe it is someone you know. Maybe it is you. And the thing you probably do, the flowers, the black clothes, the gathering of people in a room to speak quietly and cry, feels so natural, so obvious that you never stop to ask where any of it came from. But the real answer is far stranger than you expect, and it reaches back further than civilization itself. Your relationship with death did not begin with religion. It did not begin with language. It began long before you had words for what you were feeling. And what your ancestors did in the face of loss reveals something about you that no mirror can show. Let us start about 300,000 years ago, not with modern humans, with a relative, Homo naledi, a small-brained hominin discovered in the Rising Star Cave system in South Africa. Was thought to be too primitive to have any concept of death, too simple, too ancient. Then, in 2023, a team led by paleoanthropologist Lee Berger announced something that forced scientists to reconsider nearly everything. Deep inside a cave system, accessible only through a passage so narrow a grown adult can barely squeeze through, they found bodies, deliberately placed, surrounded by markings carved into the cave walls. Homo naledi, with a brain smaller than a chimpanzee's, was burying its dead, was marking the spot, was doing something that looked unmistakably like ritual. That changes everything, because it means the impulse to do something when death arrives is not a product of intelligence. It is older than intelligence. It is wired into something deeper than thought. Go back further, to the Neanderthals. For decades, archaeologists argued bitterly about whether Neanderthals were truly capable of symbolic thinking, of intention, of anything resembling ceremony. Then came Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq, excavated first by Ralph Selecki in the 1950s and returned to in recent years. The cave contained Neanderthal remains buried in a cluster, some positioned carefully on their sides, flexed as if sleeping. Pollen analysis initially suggested flowers had been placed on the bodies, though that interpretation remains debated. But the positioning was deliberate. The care was real. These were not bodies left to rot where they fell. They were arranged, handled, attended to. Your ancient relatives looked at a body and could not walk away. Something in the brain, something in whatever we were before we were fully human, demanded a response. Why? What was driving that? Here is what the neuroscience suggests. When someone dies, the human brain does not simply update its model of the world. It cannot. The people closest to you are so deeply embedded in your neural architecture, in your predictions, your expectations, your entire map of what tomorrow will look like, that their sudden absence creates a kind of cognitive crisis. Neuroscientist and grief researcher Mary Frances O'Connor describes grief as the price of love made visible in the brain. The circuits that tracked that person, that anticipated their voice, their presence, their return, those circuits keep firing, keep expecting, keep looking. Ritual, it turns out, may be one of the oldest tools your brain developed to help itself update, to force a confrontation with what is real, to begin the long, slow work of rewiring. That is why ancient humans gathered. Not because a priest told them to, not because a book instructed them. They gathered because the alternative, the silence, the absence, the doing nothing, was neurologically unbearable. The body had to be acknowledged. The loss had to be witnessed. Other people had to be present. This is not culture. This is biology expressing itself through behavior, and the behaviors themselves tell a story. Ancient Egypt placed food and tools and jewelry into tombs because the dead were understood to need them. The provisions were real. The belief in a journey was literal. Some cultures, like those of ancient Zoroastrian Persia, placed their dead in high towers open to the sky, towers of silence to be consumed by vultures. Sky burial, still practiced in parts of Tibet today, returns the body to the world, efficiently, cleanly, without disturbing the earth. The Toraja people of Sulawesi in Indonesia mummify their dead and keep them in the home for weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years. The body remains a family member. It is fed, spoken to, included. Death, in that framework, is not a hard stop. It is a slow transition that the community moves through together. What looks wildly different across cultures begins to look strangely similar when you zoom out. Every known human society has had something: a treatment of the body, a gathering of people, a period of altered behavior, some form of marking. Anthropologist David Graeber, before his death in 2020, argued that ritual is one of the primary ways humans produce shared meaning, that what a society does with its dead reveals what it believes about life itself. You cannot separate the funeral from the worldview. They are the same object. And what about the moment before burial, before the ceremony? There is evidence that ancient humans sat with their dead, stayed close, watched over. Archaeologist April Nowell has documented what she calls mortuary behavior across dozens of prehistoric sites, not just burial, but curation. The deliberate handling of bones after death, the keeping of skulls. A grandmother's skull, unearthed in the Kafze cave in Israel, 92,000 years old, had been placed carefully, deliberately, with a set of deer antlers folded over it. Someone carried those antlers there. Someone chose that arrangement, for a reason no one living can fully know, but the act itself is familiar. You recognize it. Even across 92,000 years, you recognize what that person was trying to do, because you have done it too, in some form. You have stood at the edge of a loss and tried to make the moment mean something, tried to do something, anything, because doing nothing felt impossible. Psychologist Thomas Attig, who spent decades studying how people make meaning after bereavement, argues that grief is not passive suffering. It is active work, the work of relearning the world, of rebuilding an internal map that now has a place that should not be empty but is. Ritual, ancient or modern, is the formal architecture that holds that work. It gives grief a shape, a beginning, a middle, an end, even when the feeling has no end. The flowers you bring to a grave did not start with flowers. Before flowers, there were bones arranged in careful patterns. Before bones, there were bodies lowered gently into shallow pits in the ground. Before pits, there were hands, ancient, calloused, not entirely like your hands, reaching toward what had been alive and was now still, unable to leave it, refusing to. There is a grief response documented in chimpanzees, our closest living relatives. When a chimp mother loses her infant, she will carry the body, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. Jane Goodall observed this at Gombe. Researchers have documented it across multiple chimp communities. The mother grooms the body, protects it from flies, will not put it down. Scientists debate what this means, whether it reflects a kind of proto-understanding of death or simply a disruption of the attachment bond that the brain cannot override. But it does not matter which. Either way, something in the primate brain resists abandonment of what it loved. That resistance is in you too. It has always been in you. What changed as human cognition expanded was not the grief. The grief was always there. What changed was what you built around it. Language gave you words for loss. Imagination gave you an afterlife. Community gave you ceremony. Art gave you the ability to carve a name into stone, to paint a face onto a wall, to create something that would outlast the body. Every tombstone is an act of defiance against forgetting. Every eulogy is the brain refusing to let the neural map go dark without a fight. And this is what your ancient ancestors understood, before they had any framework to explain it. That death is not just the end of one person. It is a disruption in everyone who loved them. It reverberates. It needs to be answered collectively. One person cannot grieve alone and remain whole. The tribe has to gather. The gathering is not optional. It is structural. That is why, even in a world where you can stream a funeral from another continent on your phone, the thing that helps most is still the same thing it has always been. Physical presence, people in the room, hands that touch, eyes that confirm, you are not alone in this. That message, delivered across the species for hundreds of thousands of years, has never changed. Tonight, Or someday soon, someone you know will lose someone, and without thinking, you will show up. You will bring food. You will sit with them. You will say the words that feel insufficient because there are no sufficient words. And in doing that, you will be doing something your species has done since before it was fully your species. You will be saying, with your body, what Homo naledi said in that narrow cave, what the Neanderthal said when they turned the body on its side and folded the hands, what every human in every age has said when confronted with the unbearable fact of death. I was here, you mattered, I will not look away. Right now, somewhere near you, someone is grieving, and now you know exactly why you cannot leave them alone.